Hello everyone, I'm Olivia Baldock from the Driving Instructors Association. I'm joined again today by my colleagues from NASP and DVSA to get some more updates and answers to some of our more of our member questions. Just to give you a bit of an update and the background, NASP is the National Association Strategic Partnership, so between us represent 3/4 of driver and rider trainers in the UK. NASP are also a Tier 1 stakeholder with the DVSA, plus we have representation at the DFT Road Safety Delivery Group. NASP comprises of the ADI National Joint Council, Driving Instructors Association and the Motor Schools Association of Great Britain. The chair rotates through each association every few months and currently DIA is in the chair. So from NASP, I'm joined today by Lynn Barry, chair of the ADI NJC, and Peter Harvey, there she is, hello, and Peter Harvey, chair of the Motor Schools Association of Great Britain.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And we'd like, as NASP, to again thank DVSA for attending this meeting today and for your time and to answer our member questions. It's very good of you to do this again. Next, I'll introduce Mike Warner, who's the Senior External Affairs Manager at DVSA, so he can introduce his colleagues. Mike.
Hello, everybody. Once again, thanks very much, NASP, for the invitation and for hosting this event. Really appreciate it. It's proven to be a great channel to get key questions answered and get messages out to a huge audience who viewed the video last time. So happy to do it again and again if necessary in future weeks. In terms of key people joining us, we've got Mark McGee on the line, who's the head of driver policy. I'm sure I'll give a wave. Mark Wynne, chief driving examiner. I've got Jackie Turlin, the ADI registrar. So between us, we should be able to cover most of the questions you're going to fire at us. So we're good to go.
Thanks, Mike. So the first question is for Mark Wynne. If a pupil doesn't wear a face mask on the lesson before the start of a test, and the examiner notices this when they pull in the test centre, then the pupil puts the mask on for test purposes, will the test still go ahead, as any virus could potentially now be in the car beforehand?
Thanks, Lynn. Good question. The test shouldn't be the first time that the candidate's driven whilst wearing a face covering. So we'd encourage all ADIs to read our DVSA standard operating procedure and to follow the public health 1 metre plus guidance. The wearing of face covering is altruistic, and what that means is it helps others, including you. So not wearing one in a confined space risks unnecessarily spreading the virus. So I think the message there is please wear the mask. So in answer to your question, yes, the test should still go ahead. The examiner must be satisfied that the vehicle's been recently cleaned. So before entering the car, the examiner can choose to fit a disposable seat cover to their seat, and they may use antiviral wipes to wipe down the touch points like the door handles and the other bits that they'll be touching, so that we help to keep everyone as safe as we can. So please wear a mask.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. This one is kind of follow on from that. This one's for you as well. Is it compulsory for instructors and pupils to wear masks during training, unless they have a valid reason not to, such as asthma or some other illness?
It's for each individual business to design their own health and safety policies. We would stress that it's up to trainers and the importance of needing to make sure that they've got a good, clean, safe training environment to work in, and to give their customers, pupils and their parents and their family the reassurance that everything's being done to help keep people safe and to reduce the risk of infection. Face coverings are mandatory on test, but not compulsory on lessons. That's for the individual business to decide that one.
Thank you, Matt.
Mark, I've got another one for you. Members asked about some candidates with specific needs. They're not altogether comfortable, can get a little bit worried by people wearing masks because they can't see facial expressions. So just wondering what response you have for that one.
So face coverings, as we've discussed, are mandatory, but there are some exceptions to that. And that includes people who have a good reason not to wear a face covering. It's really important that they tell us when they book the test so that we know about it in advance. The sort of reasons that are sensible is if they've got physical or mental illness or an impairment or a disability that means that they can't wear or put on a face covering. They've got to tell us at the time of booking, and we'll be as sympathetic as we can, but by and large, you need to be wearing a face covering unless you've got a really good reason for not wearing one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Question here for Mark McGee. How does the test and trace work if the instructor's booking the test for the pupil?
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, while the examiner will ask the pupil to provide an email address at the start of the test, obviously for use on the iPad, obviously that's for the purposes of receiving the test summary. It would also be helpful for you to provide a contact number for the pupil at the time of booking. This will ensure that the candidate can be contacted quickly and directly for any reason should the need arise. Obviously, hopefully that wouldn't be through test and trace, but obviously if for any reason our examiner wasn't able to provide the test and we wanted to contact the pupil, a phone number is always good.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, I think this one's probably for you. It's going to follow on with the test and trace. If one of my customers develops symptoms post-lesson and contacts me, do I need to isolate and tell my other pupils about it? And if so, do I need to do it for 14 days?
The full guidance is available at www.nhs.uk. I think the summary is that no, they don't. In effect, you may want to tell people you've been in close contact in the last 48 hours, but in effect, we need to know if they've actually got COVID-19 or not. So they do not need to self-isolate unless they're contacted by NHS Test and Trace. They should take extra care, obviously, and be aware that someone that they know has potentially got it, but they haven't got the confirmed diagnosis yet. So the key point is, no, they don't need to self-isolate immediately, but they should direct the pupil who has symptoms to self-isolate. They should, and that pupil should request a COVID test kit from NHS Test and Trace. So in a nutshell, it's only people with symptoms that should be self-isolating and wait to get the confirmation from NHS Test and Trace.
Thank you.
Mike, another one for you. So it was announced that taxi drivers were going to be routinely tested for COVID-19, and a member's asked, is this likely to be extended for ADIs, because obviously there's some of the high risk groups. So just wondering what your take on that was.
I'm not aware of any conversations taking place at the moment of that nature. I mean, the test and trace policy and COVID-19 testing would be a matter for Department of Health and Social Care. I'm not aware of any conversations at the moment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mike, this is also one for you from one of our members. Please, can you provide us with the scientific evidence on why driving instructors were allowed to restart driving lessons and be COVID secure?
Driving instructors would be considered alongside many other industries as part of the national roadmap to return to as far as normal as possible. And that's done individually. So you've got England, Scotland and Wales have got the different roadmaps and different timetables about when they feel it's appropriate to return. They will all have had the same scientific evidence to make those judgments, those decisions. To be clear, DVSA does not make these decisions as to when they restart those services. It's a matter for central government to decide when it's safe to do so. From our point of view, we've obviously shared our standard operating procedures with Public Health England and with Health and Safety Executive to make sure that they are fit for purpose and can correct. We've obviously also talked to Transport Scotland and the Welsh Government about the measures we intend to bring in, and again had those approved as part of restart plans. So in terms of the scientific evidence, I'm not privy to all the detailed studies, etc., that must be taking place at national level. We take direction as to when we're able to restart.
I think just to add to that, Mike, is obviously, I think as we alluded at the start, it is for each instructor and each business to do their own self-assessment as to whether or not they feel safe. So it is a choice. I think at the end of the day, we have shared what we can, as you said, about our standard operating procedure, which has been obviously reviewed by Public Health England, but there is still that requirement for individuals to do their own risk assessment before returning to work.
Okay, this one's about test procedures, I think probably from Mark Wynne. Hi Mark, regarding being asked not to arrive at the test centre too early, in other words, no more than 5 minutes before the test appointment time. This particular instructor is concerned that this will not give them enough time for a nervous candidate to reverse Bay Park, and for the instructor to be able to wait down the car and do all the things that they've got to do. Is it possible for that 5 minutes to be extended in any way?
We've worked out the timing and the scheduling that's taking place at our test centres quite carefully to try and make sure that we minimise the number of people that are at the test centre at any one time. And the request for the 5 minutes, not arriving more than 5 minutes beforehand, is to try and make sure that we don't have too many people in the same place at the same time. So it's for everyone's benefit. It shouldn't take a test-ready candidate any longer than 5 minutes to get in and Bay Park. So no, please don't arrive more than 5 minutes before your test slot. Try and judge it and arrive just at the right time so that there's sufficient time to be ready, but not to add to the number of people who are in the same place at the same time. As far as the wipe down and so on is concerned, we really appreciate the efforts that ADIs go to keep their cars clean normally, but particularly in this current climate. So it's very good that folk are wiping down, that the examiners will be wiping down too, for the touch points that they use. So the 5 minutes is the right place to be. So if we can all stick with that, it should make things work out.
Thank you, Matt.
Another one for you, Mark. So a member's asked, this is obviously quite a common question, but as a glasses wearer, they having trouble wearing a mask without the glasses to steam up. And they've tried very different masks on the market and the anti-mist tricks and things like that, but they're still not having any luck. So they're asking what will happen on the test if the candidate is unable to wear a mask because they can't see where they're going or they have to remove it. Will the test would it continue or would it be abandoned?
So the test shouldn't be, thanks very much for the question, the test shouldn't be the first time that the candidate has driven whilst wearing a face covering. So we'd encourage all ADIs to go through the SOP and the guidance that's been published and to follow Public Health's 1 metre plus guidance. Face coverings are mandatory on a driving test unless you've got a stated exemption and that you've told us about that at the time of booking your test. So all the tips and tricks that are out there to help you make sure that the face covering fits securely, that your glasses are clean, that you've got a well ventilated car, are all the right sort of things to be doing. So face coverings are becoming part of everyday life, I guess, for lots of tasks, including travelling on public transport and soon to be when we go into shops and things like that. So candidates should make sure that they've practiced, that they've learnt wearing a face covering in advance of their test. And we need to adapt and we need to be able to cope with it. So ultimately, if misting becomes a road safety concern, we'll be directed back to the test centre and the test will be finished.
I heard that putting the mask under the glasses on top can also help as well. So whether that would help as well.
Absolutely,
okay,
yeah, it's the right sort of thing to be doing. So
yeah.
I think the key thing is don't wait until the day of your test to turn up at the test centre to start wrestling with this stuff. You should be doing this on your lessons and get it so that it helps people on their lessons, both the instructor and the pupil. And then when you come to test, it will become the norm rather than suddenly something's very different. So I guess it's please make sure you do it. And thanks to those who are doing it. Well done.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.
Mike, one for you here, please. Now that ADIs can no longer accompany a driving test due to COVID and the new DVSA SOPs, the standard operating procedures, will the DVSA record on video and audio the driving test, the outcome and the feedback, so that the candidates can have a meaningful discussion with their trainers after the driving test in the event of the necessity for any remedial training?
No, we won't be doing the video or the audio in terms of recording the test, but ADIs are welcome to join the candidate for the debrief, provided social distancing is maintained and it's outside of the vehicle. So they'll be able to have that conversation about what went well, what didn't, as long as it's outside the vehicle and social distancing is maintained.
Okay, thank you.
This one's for Matt Wynne again, Mark. Pupils, understandably, are paying for a full driving test. How is it right that the test is being terminated early and being brought back early? Driving instructors are going out and doing a full lesson with a person. How is it any more dangerous for them than it is for an examiner, is basically what we're asking.
So I think a fair question and a decision that we didn't take lightly, because we normally, we want people to have that full assessment. This process has been in place for critical worker tests for quite a while now, and it is working, it is proving to be effective. It helps to reduce the amount of time that both people, the candidate and the instructor, are facing are in a more enclosed space with another person. So if the candidate commits a serious or a dangerous fault or makes more than 16 driving faults, we will be coming back to the test centre. The test will be concluded there and the debrief will be offered. The results already been established and is beyond doubt. So this means that the examiner and the candidate don't have to spend any longer in the vehicle together than they absolutely have to, which overall helps to reduce, it's called viral load, the amount of time that you are potentially exposed to other people. So for that reason, that's why we've got it in place.
Okay, Matt, thank you for that. Just as a little follow on to that, are there likely to be any times when an examiner might have to abandon the test like they would have done in the old days, for want of a better way of putting it?
Really good question. So most tests will go without a problem, and they'll just run as normally. If the candidate commits a fault or a number of faults that decide the result of the test early on, then the examiner will just choose the most sensible route to come back to the test centre and conclude the test early. However, if the candidate's driving is dangerous, then the examiner can still terminate the test and then not return to the test centre in the same way that it could in the pre-COVID days. It doesn't happen very often, but it's if the candidate, and certainly I wouldn't think it happening too often with professional instructors, but if the candidate is not able to continue because they're driving so unsafe, then the examiner will stop the test and then they'll return to the test centre by other means.
Thank you, Matt.
Mike, a question for you. So somebody's asked, how will deaf pupils be catered for in lessons and on tests in the future?
So in terms of lessons, that's for the individual ADI in consultation with the pupil. Of course, deaf candidates is very variable in terms of the communication spectrum. Some have hard of hearing, some will use lip reading, some will have a professional BSL translator. There's a range of different methods of communication. So that's for local ADI to have that consultation with the pupil. Regards test, we did issue communication recently regards reasonable adjustments we'd look to make. We passed that through the Disability Driving Instructors Association, obviously yourself, NASP. I've also sent it out to deaf associations, so Deaf Association and others. This is a reasonable adjustments we'd look to make. So again, we will allow BSL interpreters in the car as a third person because it's an essential reasonable adjustment. In terms of removing the face covering to enable lip reading, that is something we would be happy to do. The key thing is, again, as per any adjustment, it needs to be declared at the time of booking so we can make sure we've got a suitable examiner that's willing to take that test. In terms of the specific details, I'm assuming when we publish this webinar, we can attach the details of that. I know you've already put that guidance out already anyway, because I get your updates, but if we can put that out again, that'd be great.
Thank you very much.
Another one here for you, Mike. Some special needs clients need a rest break during the test. Is that still going to be possible?
Yeah, all test slots are now considered to be extended slots. They've already got additional time built into them. So yeah, that's absolutely a reasonable adjustment.
Okay, that's good, thanks.
This one's for Matt McGee. In the same way, Matt, that emergency tests are being prioritised for critical workers, can there be any priority also given to individuals that are classed as clinically vulnerable and unable to use public transport for whatever reason? If so, how would they go about obtaining a test through the booking system?
This is not information that we hold at present, and obviously given the complexity of obviously trying to do this, it's not something that we're able to pursue. Obviously candidates are receiving their rescheduled email in the order that they were originally booked. Obviously those who therefore had tests in March have been prioritised, those who have tests in April. That's the fairest way to proceed, and that is how we intend to continue to do so at the moment. I think we also need to obviously bear in mind as to what is the broader government guidance around public transport, which obviously today things are slightly changing, it's quite difficult for us to keep in touch and keep up with everything in terms of having our processes. I think, as we said before, we do tend to respond to what is announced by the government, but fairness, I think, has got to be the order of the day at the moment.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark Wynne, I've got one for you. This one's a bit long, so I will read it out as it was sent in. Hope that's okay. So it's a trainer booker site question. So when the trainer booking site opened on the 6th of July, the members said they found their pupils' tests on hold. They said there was no guidance on the site, but then it allowed him to or her to access these bookings and choose dates in August and September to move them to, which they did. I think later that day they received an email to say I was not to change tests already booked or to book new tests, or they'd be cancelled and effectively lose their priority status. That ADI had a number of tests in that position, and they said they weren't given any warning or guidance, and the booking site allowed them to change the test. So he said he was, they're just unsure of why the site was opened, and before the information, and potentially put his or her students who've been waiting for a while to the back of the queue. So their question is DVSA going to either honour the bookings or at least put them back in the priority booking queue? Bit of a long one, that one. I hope that's. So
first of all, well done, Olivia, for getting through the question. Secondly, well done to whoever asked the question, because it is a hugely complex machine, this test booking thing. And when you add in the complexities of trainer booking and business booking, it becomes ever more complicated. We've never turned this machine off before, let alone had to try and restart it. So in getting the whole booking system back up and running, we've built in a series of steps and stages that we think are the best way of getting the system back up and running. But we've never had a rehearsal of this before, so we are making the best decisions at the time as we think, but we are learning as we go along. So there are two parts of our booking system. There's OBS, Online Business System, that is mostly used for trainer booking plus some ADI business booking. And then there's the internet booking system, which again has got two sections to it, and that's used for individual bookings. We needed to open up trainer booking so that motorcycle and vocational tests could be booked. The same part of the system that supports trainer booking enables access to business bookers like ADIs who use these use that system either to book individual tests for their pupils or to manage their bookings and move them around. And then we also get some people who use it for car and trailer bookings as well. So in opening up trainer booking, we had to open up business booking as well. Now, as we did that, we sent the message out to all business bookers to say, please don't move or add bookings to the system. You can cancel if you want, but don't move it and don't make new bookings. If you do, start tampering with the machine whilst we're getting it back up and running and getting it up to full speed. We'll have no alternative but to cancel your bookings. Our messages don't always go out in the best way or at the right time. Sometimes that doesn't quite go according to plan. So we reiterated that message a couple of days later. And I have to say the response to the second message has been a lot more positive. It must have been a bit clearer. Please don't business book tests until we tell you to, because you're tampering with the machine whilst we're trying to get it started, and we will have to cancel those tests. Not something we want to do, but that's the only way of managing getting this system back up again. There were tests being added onto the system, because don't forget, whilst we're looking and booking this system, the deployment teams are in there, whilst the machine's moving, the deployment teams are in there adding new tests to it and creating new examiner programs. So there were people booking tests to December. Now, if you can work out what's going to happen in December, please let us know, because you can come and join our deployment team or our demand forecasting team, because we're still trying to plan it for what's happening during the summer. So for that sort of reason, we've had to be fairly firm on this and say, do not business book a test until we tell you to. Nearly everybody has worked that out and got the right messages. So if you've been caught up on the rough end of that, I'm really sorry, but we had no chance, no choice but to take that kind of thing. By and large, it seems to be, the restart seems to be going according to plan. A few glitches around trainer booking allocation, but each time we find a glitch or a problem, we're working with trainers and other users to try and help us work out what it is, and we're moving steps forward. So far, getting better each time as we go along. Hopefully that's been the same for your members.
Thank you for that answer. That's really comprehensive. And also, yeah, you did, I think it's Mike helped out with one of our members' issues the other day. Very speedy response and all was well. Very happy member. So thank you for that. Great stuff.
Thanks.
Mark, there's another question for you. It's a bit shorter, you'll be pleased to know. When the test centres reopen and based on the reduced number of tests being carried out, can the test times start at memorable times, such as 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10:15, 11:15 a.m, instead of the 10:22, 11:43, etc.?
So when we restructured the programs, we had to, not only did we have to make sure that there was the right gap between the test times, but we also needed to try and make sure that we didn't have too many examiners working in the same place at the same time. So the schedules have been carefully worked out to make sure that the extended time for all the extra bits and pieces is in place, but also so that we don't get too much overlap with too many people in a test centre at the same time. So unfortunately, we're stuck with the slightly peculiar times. That's how it is for the time being, I'm afraid. But I'm sure we'll all get used to it. I think that it's a timely point to reiterate some of the advice that we've put out already, which is please help us by checking the appointment email, the confirmation email, which has got the test details on it. I know the instructors do check this, but it becomes even more important at this time because some of those test times won't be the ones that you're used to seeing. So please do double check that so that you get to the test centre at the right time.
Okay, thanks.
This one's for Matt McGee. Matt, of all the key workers that instructors have been teaching during lockdown, what percentage that have applied for the practical tests were actually allocated practical tests prior to the 4th of July? Sorry.
I think the honest answer is probably a very small percentage because it was necessary to prioritise specific categories of key workers. I think obviously when we first set up the service, I think the definition of a key worker was quite broad, but our initial focus had to be on tests for the ambulance services and those in the care sector. Obviously, we have now started to invite other categories of key workers to book a test, and emails are on their way out to people to do that over the next few days.
Thank you.
This one's for you, Mike. So is there a list or is there a list that you can share of active and inactive test centres? That would be useful. Do you have any updates on that?
Lots of updates. We review it daily at the driver side stand-up. You'll be aware a lot of our driving test centres have been closed for quite some time. We needed to do a lot of checks to make sure they're able to reopen. That included water checks, included things like jetting, manoeuvring areas, that sort of thing. A lot of the contractors that we rely on to do that were also affected by COVID. Either they were furloughed themselves, weren't operational themselves. And of course, when they come back online, they've got loads of shops and retail and all sorts of businesses that now need their services. So we're busy trying to get the test network back up and running, safe, ready, able and open for business. But we're doing that in an environment where there's a lot of demand on those services to access. The key reason we haven't published a list at the moment is because it's updated daily. You know, we're regularly reviewing the list, and it's changing so regularly that it would be impractical to publish that list at this point in time. But we are keeping the information and getting the information out there as and when.
Okay. Thank you.
This is one for Mark McGee, please. With several examiners not returning to work at present, are the DVSA employing more to cover the shortfall and reduce the enormous wait for a test?
Priority and focus has been on resuming the service safely, and obviously that's partly also about making sure that our examiners feel safe to return to work. Obviously there is a high volume of driving examiners who are returning, and the staggered test times, the reduced number of tests per day that are in place to ensure social distancing have been arranged based on the current workforce. So there are no current plans to recruit more driving examiners, but that will continue to be kept under review as we go forward.
Okay, thank you.
This one's for you, Jackie. This is from a PDI member. It's quite long, but I'll read it out to you as I got it. The PDI would like to ask why the DVSA are not extending the time to match the lockdown time to give PDIs adequate time to pass all tests, especially since there is no news on their Part 3 tests. This extension should match the time that the lockdown has been on each individual part of the UK. Question, are DVSA going to guarantee a Part 3 test in time before the 2 years are up if there is no extensions? This person has completed so much work to try and become an ADI and used all of their savings on training, and only wants, and will only have until December this year to complete this. They'll be working full time as well as looking after the family alongside other things that they've been doing. Seems unfair to them if they're not granted an extension. Can you help?
We have no further news on an extension to the theory test at this stage. But if I could clarify that the legislative requirement is that a PDI has a Part 3 test booked before the expiry of their Part 1, not that they have passed it. And if no tests are available before their Part 1 expires, they should look to use, or in any circumstance, if there's no test available, they should look to use the book to hold service, and then that satisfies the requirements of the regulations because they have a booking.
Thank you, Jackie.
Hi Jackie, I've got another one for you as another PDI question. They say as a pink license holder, they didn't cut up their badge and send it back with a photograph of it. They said they followed all of the government guidelines and have not taught during the lockdown. They were accepted onto the register as a fit and proper person, and they believe that, requesting that they destroy their badge as evidence, they're not happy about that at all. Please confirm that all those holding licenses will be accepted for an extension, preferably, but alternatively for a second license if they require one.
Okay, there are no extensions to training licenses. They are 6 months, that's set in legislation. They can apply for a second one, or a third if necessary. And I will take all of the circumstances into account when making a decision whether or not to grant one. If a trainee has demonstrated that they weren't using their licence, I will take that into account in the decision whether or not to grant another. And that advice is on Gov UK and has always been on Gov UK, that if you're not using it, you should return it. And that advice has not changed.
Thank you, Jackie.
There's another one here, Jackie. Will the DVSA be looking to extend the 2-year period to allow those trainees whose training's been interrupted by the pandemic to complete their training?
So the 2-year validity period of the theory test is set in legislation, and that is to ensure that the candidate's theoretical knowledge remains current. And to extend the validity period would require legislative change. And as I said earlier, we've got no further news on an extension to that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Jackie, this one's for you again. When am I getting my answer from my DVS ADI application, sorry, so I can start my ADI training to get back again? I sent my application off, but have received no reply for almost 4 months now.
I'm assuming this is a question about where the DBS is. So DBS applications are processed on DVSA's behalf by our contractor GB group. We are not able to check the progress of any individual application, but users can check on for progress on www.gov.uk/DBS, or you can phone our contractor GB group on 0115 969 4600, and it's option 2.
Very helpful, thank you.
Another one coming your way, Jackie. A member has asked the question. They said, I have a PDI who is on a trainee license. Their trainee license is the type that requires me to supervise 20% of the driving lessons that they conduct. My question is, the DVSA has recently informed us that ADIs are not allowed to sit in the back of the car on driving tests. Does this rule also prevent me sitting in the back of my PDI's car during driving lessons? We only have just been allowed to return to teaching learners with guidance for how we should conduct normal lessons. So could you please advise how we should supervise PDIs? Are there any plans to change the legislation to allow us to change a trainee license to the extra training version?
So it's an instructor's, or the trainer in this case, responsibility to ensure that the training and supervision is carried out as safely as possible. Unfortunately, trainees can't swap the license type partway through, because if they did that, it would be impossible for them to meet the regulatory conditions that under which the license was granted. And we have no plans to change legislation to allow this. The trainee could choose to apply for a new license, so effectively another first, but they would have to, then opt for additional training, but they would need to pay the fee again, and they would need to meet all the conditions of the first one. So I wouldn't advise that that's what they do, that you have to find a way of safely conducting the supervision.
Okay, thank you very much.
There's another one here, Jackie. What's happening with renew ADI application? I've been trying to renew since July the 1st.
We have been processing applications throughout since the restrictions were in place. However, the whole of the ADI team is working remotely. We all work from home now, and have done since the end of March. So we would ask ADIs and PDIs to please not send in postal applications, because we have very limited access to the office at the moment. We have since the beginning of June, and that is specifically to send out ADI certificates and trainee licenses, and we don't have time to deal with the backlog of mail that has built up. So that anybody has been able to renew their registration online throughout. There is no problem with the online system. It might be that this individual, because I don't know who they are, there might be that they have an issue with their profile, in which case if they could email the ADI team at padi@dvsa.gov.uk, we can look into that for them.
Okay, thanks, Jackie.
This one's for you, Mike. It's fairly short and sharp. What's happening to the Part 3s and standards checks?
Well, it was a very busy day on Wednesday. We got a lot out the door. So obviously Wales restart announcements. We had spastic screens of cars, and we also had ADI tests. So we announced the information on Wednesday the 15th. ADI tests and standards checks will restart in England from 22nd of July, and in Wales from the 17th of August. Restart date in Scotland, we're still waiting for that. We'll continue to have those conversations. We're prioritising those whose ADI Part 2 test was put on hold due to the pandemic. We'll contact everyone with a new test date soon. I think that's already in progress. A lot of people have already received those emails. The key thing for us really is we want to allow as much time as possible for those taking a Part 3 test or a standards check to get sufficient practice and training from an audit trainer before taking their test. In the same way as we allow time for a candidate taking a test to have further instruction from an ADI, we want to make sure that you've all got the time to make sure that you can have the best possible opportunity of getting the instruction in, getting the training in, and passing that test with flying colours. Once we've contacted everyone whose test's been rescheduled due to pandemic, we'll reopen the booking service for everyone else. So we'll also announce further information about Part 3 and standards check, the procedures for that shortly. In terms of dates that we've announced that, so we're focusing on Part 2 first.
Could I just add something to that? So the invitations, we have started rescheduling Part 2 tests, but the invitation does contain a link into the booking system that says if you want to change your test, you can't change your test at the moment because the booking system isn't open to the public. I ask also that people don't ring the contact centre. They have got waits of hours at the moment. If somebody really cannot take the Part 2 that we've rescheduled for them, if they could email customer services with a preferred date, then the booking team will try and accommodate that.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, Mike, another one for you. When it's a again Scotland and Wales question. So when can driving lessons and tests resume in Scotland? I'm constantly being asked by my students. Yeah, is there an update on that at the moment? Obviously for Wales, we've heard that this week, and you've released that information, but I think they're more asking about Scotland at the moment.
I think at the moment we're in the same position as yourself. We're having weekly conversations with Transport Scotland. Obviously, you've heard that motorcycle theory tests, that's been announced already. Unfortunately, driving lessons and tests in cars will have to wait a bit longer. So at the moment, we have no further update. We continue to have that conversation with Scotland.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mike, this is one about Wales, and can you just confirm the timetable for driving lessons and tests being able to restart in Wales?
Again, this was all covered on Wednesday. So we announced, well, First Minister for Wales made the announcement on Wednesday. We followed that up very quickly in the afternoon with a full communications package, stakeholder info pack, messages to ADIs. All the details are on gov.uk. I won't go through every single line now because there's a huge list of different things depending on what exactly it is you're looking for. But have a look on gov.uk. All the information's there.
Okay, thank you.
This one's for you, Mark McGee. It's also about Wales and test centres in Wales. When we rebook a test in Wales, do we have to rebook for where it was rescheduled by DVSA? Or can we go to another test centre? I.e., the pupils' test was booked for Llandudno. No, it wasn't. It was Llandudno, Wales. Sorry, to all those Welsh listeners, I'm really sorry I pronounced that wrongly, which is now closed, and the test was rescheduled for Brecon. But Ludlow is closer than Brecon, so can he book for Ludlow?
Not at this stage, Peter. Obviously, Wales, of course, remains subject to restrictions, but once on hold candidates are able to reschedule, they may select any operational driving test centre and select any available slot. But obviously, until we have the date of when driving lessons are able to resume, then obviously we'll give you updated information about when the testing starts.
Mark, I'm disappointed. I thought you might have named the test centre there.
What, Ludlow?
That came to the last question, and this one's going to be for you, Mike. So if a provisional licence holder has a photocard that expired between February the 1st and August the 31st this year, DVLA have granted a 7-month extension so long as the licence holder still holds a valid driving entitlement. The question, will the licence holder be able to book a practical test, and will DVSA permit them to take the practical test on the expired photocard?
Well, the extension does not apply to provisional licenses. It's only for full licence holders. So it's those that have a valid driving entitlement, and a provisional licence doesn't have a valid driving entitlement attached to that. So the extension does not apply to provisional licenses. If their provisional licence expired, then it's expired. They'll need to contact DVLA to apply for a new one. DVSA won't allow any pupil to book a test with an expired provisional licence.
Including the photograph being expired, Mike?
Yeah, if it's expired, then it's expired. Provisional licence is not covered under the extension. It's only current full licence.
Thank you. I'm going to hand it back to Olivia now.
Thank you. Right. Well, that's all of our questions for this session. We do have some more, and we'll continue to talk with you, I hope so. But just to say thank you, DVSA, very much for all your time. We know that you're very busy, you're working hard behind the scenes, getting everything sorted. But we'd like to thank you on behalf of NASP with your time today and answering our questions. I'm sure our members will find those really helpful. Anything else to add, Peter and Lynn?
No, just thank you very much.
Yeah, just thanks to everyone and to you for chairing it, Olivia.
No problem.
Thanks a lot, Olivia. Let's keep this going. Any questions, let us know.
We'll do. We'll be in touch. So
have a good weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
And you. Thanks, Olivia. Thanks, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.